In the bright April sun, a teenager in Arlington held up his camera and smiled like he had just won the lottery. The tomb guard stood steady, his navy blue tunic shimmering and the medals reflecting the sun. The people in the crowd were calm as they waited for a picture. But what happened next wasn't a flash. A stream of water splashed the guard's face. People gasped, phones fell, and the air was thick of shock. For the tourist, it was a joke that would get them a lot of attention online. But what he didn't know, and what no one in that audience could have expected, was that the tomb guard he just insulted had fought in Afghanistan and was about to suffer the genuine repercussions. Before we dive into this truly amazing story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. Please help us keep the memory of honor, courage, and sacrifice alive if you still believe in them. The sun was low in the sky above Arlington National Cemetery in the morning. It made lengthy shadows over rows of white headstones that seemed to go on forever. There was a faint breeze that carried the smell of freshly cut grass, but the air was full with respect. This was sacred ground, a place where America honored its fallen soldiers. The tomb of the unknown soldier stood in the middle of everything, and the marble sparkled in the April sun. People quietly gathered to see the changing of the guard, a ceremony that stood for honor, accuracy, and sacrifice. Alejandro Morales, a 24-year-old from Madrid, Spain, was there. He called himself Alex on YouTube. Alex shone out like a bright light in a sea of dull colors. He wore a t-shirt with a Spanish flag on it, slicked back hair, and bright sunglasses. He smiled at Lucia, who was playing with the settings on her phone, and fixed his backpack. "This is it, Lucia," Alex said with excitement in his voice. "Today is the day we go viral. 1 million views? No problem. Maybe 2. Lucia, who was 23 and had a quick smile that kept Alex grounded, raised an eyebrow. "I don't know, Alex. This place feels heavy. Maybe we should just film some normal tourist stuff. Respect the vibe." She looked around at the families with guidebooks and veterans who were standing a little straighter. Alex smiled and waved her aside. "Come on, Lucia. We didn't come all the way to America to film boring stuff. These guys in the fancy uniforms are perfect. A little prank, a big reaction, and boom, we're trending. Trust me, I've got it all planned." He patted his backpack, where a high-tech water gun that looked like a professional camera was hidden. He paid $300 for it at a prop store in New York. But Alex saw it as a means to create money in the future. 20 yards away, Sergeant Ethan Cole stood at his post. His navy blue outfit was neatly pressed, his white gloves were clean, and the kepi cap he wore created a shadow over his face. At 28, Ethan was a veteran soldier who had spent 6 years in the army and gone to Afghanistan. He had to train hard for months to become a tomb guard, which was the best thing that had happened to him. His eyes, which were covered by dark shades, glanced over the crowd with a calmness that came from experience. He had met people like Alex before, loud, stupid, and just wanting some attention. Ethan's job was to respect the unknowns, no matter what else was going on. Alex pushed Lucia and pointed at Ethan. "Look at that guy standing there like a robot. He must be really bored. Lucia, start rolling. Let's get the crowd going." Lucia stopped for a while, then moaned and pressed record. Her phone caught Alex as he started to perform. "Hey everyone," Alex said as others turned to look. He pointed at Ethan and gave him a stiff salute. "Welcome to Arlington, where we have the most serious statues in the world." Some youngsters around laughed, while an older couple frowned and moved back. Alex didn't notice it. He walked closer, pretending to be a soldier marching, kicking his legs high and waving his arms like a cartoon soldier. He exclaimed, "Time for an inspection," and winked at Lucia's camera. "Have to make sure Mr. Fancy Pants is following the rules." Mr. Thompson, who is 65 years old and a Vietnam War veteran, was standing toward the edge of the crowd with his wife. His face seemed old, and he wore a Marine Corps pin on his blazer. He murmured under his breath, "This kid doesn't have any respect. Just ignore him, Harold," his wife urged, squeezing his arm. But Mr. Thompson's gaze stayed on Alex, and his jaw was tight. Lucia put her phone down for a bit. "Alex, maybe you should calm down a little. People are watching." Alex laughed and ran his fingers through his hair. "That's the point, Lucia. They're loving it. Look at this." He stepped closer to Ethan and leaned in to see the medals on his chest. "Hey dude, these are shiny. Did you polish them yourself, or did they come that way?" There were a few hesitant laughs in the room, but the mood was changing. Parents pulled their kids back because they felt there was trouble. Ethan stayed quiet, breathing steadily and looking straight ahead. He could see everything Alex did through his sunglasses. He had been in the service for 8 years, so he knew how to read situations like this, people pushing the limits without knowing what they were doing. Ethan's mind briefly drifted back to his training at Fort Myer, when he had to complete countless drills while a drill instructor roared, "Your duty is to the unknowns. Your honor is their honor." He steeled himself and resolved to keep that pledge. Alex walked around Ethan like a comedian on stage, not caring that he wasn't talking. He continued, "This whole thing is just for show, right? Loud enough for everyone to hear. Come on. Who signs up to dress up all day? Real soldiers are out there doing real stuff," he said, air quoting real stuff and beaming at Lucia's camera. Lucia bit her lip, feeling more and more nervous. "Come on, Alex. These guys are real soldiers. I read about them online." Alex rolled his eyes. "Lucia, calm down. They're just tourist spots, like the guys in London with the big hats. No one is getting hurt." He leaned in closer to Ethan again. "Hey buddy, do you ever smile, or is that not allowed? I bet they teach you how to look like you're trying out for a wax museum." A few teens laughed, but the adults didn't exhibit any reaction. "Disgraceful," Mr. Thompson muttered as he shook his head. Sarah, a 35-year-old park ranger, stood close and watched with a serious look on her face. There was a slight crackling sound coming from her radio. She had dealt with nasty strangers before, but Alex's arrogance made her uneasy. She walked forward, and her voice was steady but forceful. "Sir, I need to remind you that this is a place of honor. The tomb guards are active duty soldiers, and we expect all visitors to show respect." Alex smiled sweetly and raised his hands as if to say he was done. "Oh yes, ma'am. Just having some fun. It's April Fool's Day, right? No harm done." Sarah frowned, but she nodded and stepped back, putting her hand on her radio. Alex said to Lucia, "Total buzzkill. Let's keep going," after she couldn't hear him. Alex raised the stakes after talking to someone in charge and feeling more sure of himself. He took out his phone and acted like he was filming a show on nature. He continued in a fake David Attenborough voice, "And here we have the elusive tomb guard in its natural habitat. Look at the stiff posture and blank stare. This is a textbook illustration of ceremonial boredom." Some kids giggled, but the adults nearby gave them ugly looks. Lucia's camera broke a little. "Alex, this is getting weird," she said. "Let's just go eat." "Not yet," Alex answered in a low, confidential voice. He smirked and touched his backpack. "We haven't gotten to the main event yet," he replied. "Trust me, this is going to be great." Lucia's stomach hurt, but she kept shooting because she was torn between dread and loyalty. The crowd was getting smaller, and some tourists were departing to avoid the event. Mr. Thompson stood with his arms crossed and regarded Alex with a mix of anger and pity. Nearby, a group of kids listened as their teacher lectured about how important the tomb was. "These soldiers aren't just there to look good," she said in a hushed voice. "They've fought in wars and earned their place through sacrifice." The kids nodded and gazed at Alex with more and more hatred. Alex got bolder, even if he didn't notice the change in attitude. He moved near enough to Ethan to touch him and pretended to clean his buttons. "Soldier boy, I've got to keep these shiny, right?" he said in a sarcastic tone. "I bet they don't teach you how to deal with tourists in boot camp." The only sign that Ethan was human under the discipline was that his jaw tightened just a little. His training was still good, but he was getting impatient. Sarah was talking into her radio and watching Alex at the same time. She had seen enough. She was ready to step in if he went too far. Alex didn't see it since he was too busy with his act. "Okay, everyone," he yelled loudly, like a ringmaster. "Now it's time for the big finish, the last April Fool's joke." He opened his backpack with a flourish and took out what looked like an expensive camera. Lucia's eyes got larger when she figured out what it really was. A water cannon that someone had neatly disguised. She put her phone down and said, "Alex, what are you doing? That's too far." Alex didn't listen to her and went back to being a showman. "Hey everyone," he began. "I'm about to take a picture of a very special moment with America's best." He changed the fake camera settings to entice others to look at him. Some tourists raised their phones, expecting something big to happen. But Mr. Thompson's voice cut through. He screamed, "Stop that nonsense right now," as he stepped forward. This isn't a game, but Alex was set on doing it. He grinned and held up the water gun for the best April Fool's image. 3, 2, 1. When he pulled the trigger, a forceful shower of water smacked Ethan straight in the face. The liquid hit his sunglasses, ran down his face, and got his pristine uniform dirty, pooling at his collar where his medals shined. The world stopped for a heartbeat. Everyone in the crowd gasped, and it looked like they all drew a deep breath at once. Lucia stopped walking, and her phone fell out of her hands. Mr. Thompson's cheeks became scarlet with rage. Parents turned their backs on their kids to keep them safe from what was going on. Sarah sprinted ahead with her radio blasting, but it was too late to turn it off. Ethan didn't move, and water trickled down his face and soaking his clothes. Droplets stuck to his medals, which he earned in Afghanistan and polished every morning. His training told him to be still and appreciate the unknowns above everything else. But there was a shift in his eyes. They shone with resolve. This wasn't just a joke. This would have upset every soldier buried here. As the quiet continued on, Alex's smile faded. He expected there would be laughing or maybe a harsh glare, but not this deathly calm. He shook the fake camera in his hands and said, "It's just water, man. April Fools, right? No big deal." His voice broke, which showed that he was beginning to get concerned. Everyone was shocked by how fast Ethan moved. He stepped forward in one fluid motion and seized Alex's wrist with his gloved hand, exerting exactly the appropriate amount of force. He snatched the water cannon out of Alex's hand with his other hand and held it up as proof. His voice was low and strong, and it pierced through the silence like a dagger. "This isn't funny. You're hurting the men and women who gave everything for this country." Alex's face lost all color, and his swagger came apart. He stammered, I didn't mean," and his Spanish accent got louder as he got more afraid. Ethan's hold didn't hurt, but it didn't let go, which was a clear sign that fighting back was pointless. The crowd looked on, phones down, and their interest changed to shame. "Alex, what have you done?" Lucia murmured in a hushed voice as she stepped back. Sarah made it to them with 2 more rangers on either side of her. "Step back, Sergeant," she said in a voice that was both professional and tense. "We'll take care of it from here." Ethan let go of Alex's wrist and stepped back with military precision, but he still stood above him. Sarah gave Alex a harsh look. "You're coming with us. It's a big deal to mess with a tomb guard." When Alex figured out what was going on, his knees shook. He cried, "It was just a joke. I didn't know. I thought he was a tourist." Sarah stayed still. "Not knowing isn't an excuse. Let's go." She told him to follow her, and the other rangers came closer. Mr. Thompson pushed his way through the crowd, his voice breaking with emotion. He stared at Alex and said, "You thought this was funny. That man is guarding my brothers who never came home. You were rude to all of them." Alex blinked and glanced at Ethan's damp clothes where the medals shone in the sun. He suddenly saw that they weren't just props. They were symbols of sacrifice. Ethan spoke again while still standing at attention. His speech was firm, even though water was pouring out of his kepi. "This uniform stands for every soldier who didn't come home. These medals aren't just for show. They're proof of service and lives lost. I served in Afghanistan, and the men who stand here tomorrow have been in combat too. You make fun of that for a video." His words weren't angry, but they were heavy enough to make everyone stop talking. Alex's shoulders drooped. He was no longer sure of himself. "I didn't know," he murmured in a voice that was hard to hear. I thought you were just..." He stopped talking and couldn't finish. Lucia stepped forward, her face pale. "I'm very sorry," she told Ethan and then Sarah. "He didn't get it. We didn't get it." Sarah nodded, but her face stayed the same. She told Alex, "With understanding comes responsibility. You need to tell the police about this. Let's go." Alex turned around to stare at Ethan as they carried him away, and his voice shattered. "I'm sorry, man. I was stupid. I didn't get it." Ethan nodded slightly to signify that he accepted the apologies, then went back to work. He stood up straight, even though his uniform was wet. The crowd stood still for a while, before slowly breaking apart and their talking stopped. Mr. Thompson stayed for a long, feeling quietly proud of Ethan. He turned to his wife and spoke in a low voice. He said, "That's what honor looks like." She nodded and clutched his hand tightly. The teacher of the school group spoke to her kids who were close by. "Remember this," she said. "Respect isn't just a word. It's how we show that we care about those who gave everything." Lucia turned off her camera and followed Sarah and Alex to the security office. She was no longer excited about the trip. Sarah informed them what could happen: a fine, a ban from Arlington, and maybe even more if they were charged. Alex sat still with his head in his hands, thinking about what Ethan had said. He suddenly realized that his joke wasn't going to make him famous, it was just going to make him seem bad. Ethan stood watch over the tomb again. The sun dried the damp clothes, and the medals on his chest sparkled. Everyone has a story of bravery. He thought about his squad in Afghanistan, the friends he had lost, and the people he didn't know who he now honored. He didn't care about the disrespect, since remembering them gave him strength and reminded him why he was there. As the day went on, the audience got back into the swing of things. But things were different now. There weren't as many tourists who wanted to take silly shots. More folks stood back and admired Ethan from a distance. Parents explained their kids what the tomb meant and why the guard never moved. Mr. Thompson and his wife stayed until the next guard change. As Ethan marched off, still on duty, they saluted him. Alex's apology hung in the air, which was a small step toward comprehending it. He came to Arlington to get famous, but he left with a lesson that would stay with him forever. Some people and places need more than simply a good chuckle. They seek respect that comes from making sacrifices and is given by those who stand guard. And in Arlington, where the price of freedom is written in stone, that respect is not up for argument. You could send a super chat to help get more stories like this one if you liked it. Now click on the video on the screen to hear another story that is just as engaging and exciting. It includes bravery, sacrifice, and a choice that will make you rethink all you thought you knew about duty and justice. Click on the video.